I wasn't really interested in the part. Another helpless girlfriend, too small a role for me, but my management told me to take the meeting. It was Rob Mars, after all. You don't say no to Rob Mars. I've had a million meetings in my acting career, and I had no idea that this would be the one that would change my life forever. I walked into the room, and there was Rob. At this point, I was past being dazzled by movie stars, or so I thought. But even at the Oscars, in that concentrated crowd of self-involved, hard-to-impress A-listers, Rob Mars turns heads. Celebrities gawk at him the way most people gawk at them. Here he was, Rob Mars in the flesh. Seeing him spun me back to my teen years, before I took the role of Lucy McAllister on American Dream, before all the press, the red carpets, the award ceremonies, the movies and TV appearances. Back to the days when Rob Mars was a life-size poster on my best friend Aurora's bedroom door, and we had no idea that I would ever lead a life that would have me meeting him in person, much less as a potential colleague. I would say I never dreamed of it, but isn't this what everyone dreams of? Rob rose to greet me, tall and debonair, his familiar face sharper in 3 dimensions, as if he'd always been slightly blurry on screen, and now he was in high def. His brow and chin were strong, elegantly framed by salt and pepper hair. But you know that. What I really mean is that in person his features were breathtaking, his face chiseled by destiny. And I had never noticed before how his eyebrows slanted down toward his ears. It made him look a little vulnerable, in spite of the ridiculous bone structure. "Hi, I'm Lizzie," I said, and stuck out my hand to shake his. A worry flitted through my head. Was he one of those germaphobes? I hadn't done my research. Had I blown it already? But he took my hand and, at the same time, leaned in to kiss my cheek. Phew. "Can I call you Elizabeth?" he asked. "You're too sophisticated for Lizzie." I nodded dumbly. My father was the only person who called me Elizabeth. Elizabeth felt premature, but also intimate coming from Rob, as if he'd already found something in me that he'd been looking for. "Elizabeth," he said and smiled, that famous megawatt smile, but now it was for me. We took our chairs, and I noticed that he was one of those people with a disproportionately long torso, because sitting down he was a good foot taller than I was, and I'm 5'7". There were other people in the room, 6 maybe. Hard to say. I never pay much attention to entourages of agents and managers, and I was transfixed by that smile. Anyway, Rob was the one who led the conversation from the start. He talked about how much he'd admired my work, not just on American Dream, but in Underground and The Last Hurrah. I ate up the praise. American Dream was formative for me. I grew up on that show, but I didn't want it to define me as an actor for the rest of my life. Plus, these compliments were coming from one of the biggest movie stars in the world, maybe the biggest movie star. Rob Mars isn't just a moviegoer's idol, he's an actor's actor. He's played good guys, bad guys, teen heartthrobs, Jesus himself, and an immortal God who rules over an unbelievably distant planet. He even sang in some musical where he played a sensitive cowboy. Anyway, my point is completely obvious to anyone who has ever stepped into a movie theater. Nothing Rob Mars ever does feels small, and it never is. All his movies overperform. He overperforms. Whatever you think of that movie, he was a completely believable son of God. Somehow even the cowboy musical, which was generally considered to be a flop, made millions of dollars. Meanwhile, all my movies so far had been small, offbeat indies with good reviews and mediocre to non-existent box offices. And all my parts had been awkward girls with glasses and names like Ruby, who just needed to accept their quirkiness before realizing that the cute lead guys loved them in spite of themselves. And now Rob Mars himself knew who I was. By name. He knew and said he loved my last film, which, as far as I could tell, had been seen by about 12 people. If nothing else came out of this meeting, at least I had that.